when I was pregnant, I had this brain rule of like, I'm going to become a calm person because I need this. It was anyway. So like I did yoga and I had counseling and I like walked and I was in nature and I like really was actually regulated and doing really well. And then I became a parent and I had no idea about my sensory processing. I had no idea about my PDA. I had no idea that like, I had just no idea. And so right again, it's the narrative of like, there's something really with you, that you are so in chaos again when this is like all that you've ever wanted.
What are some challenges that you face as a neurodivergent parent?
I think the main challenge for me and I've really come to understand this better in the past year or so, is how much downtime and rest I need for my brain, and I can't get it.
I learned really quick when Jacob was first born that like, oh wow, I've sort of hidden my whole life by taking care of other people's needs, so I didn't have to do the hard work of taking care of my needs, which is much more complicated. But Jacob, especially, you know, when he wasn't sleeping, that took so much energy. Like you're like, oh, I need help. I do need help accessing or, you know, meeting my needs so I can even remotely meet his. And so that was a huge learning curve, not just for me, because I was like, oh, I've never really done this. And then everyone around me was like, oh, he's suddenly becoming very demanding, you know, like, and I'm like,
just coming to understand that it's exhausting in here, like the level of information and processing and analyzing and everything is just a lot and exhausting. And ideally I would have not just downtime and rest, but solitude, to be able to just like decompress and process stuff and, you know, like reinvigorate myself. But it's really hard to get that being a working parent, a homeschooling / unschooling parent also. So that's the thing that when I look at my life, it's like, oh, I really could use a lot more rest.
What's it like to be a neurodivergent person parenting? Like, what's that been like? You can still talk about Elsa and Anna again, and like, then we can go from there.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. I was just saying that everyone knows Elsa's autistic, but not everyone knows Anna has ADHD. But then Mel's saying, well, maybe not everyone knows Elsa's autistic. I was like, wow, autistic.
Yeah, mind blown. Yes.
It's not a thing. She's just not,
yes.
That's why she can't be queen too, right? She doesn't want to deal with that kind of social posturing. Anna's perfect for it. It worked out.
It did work. It worked out in that, you know, Elsa achieved niche construction by going out to live in the woods.
What are some challenges that you have faced as a neurodivergent parent?
I'm still struggling with the concept of production. You know, we've talked about it during All Brains Belong. That whole concept of raising productive kids, of being productive every minute of every day, and being productive myself every minute of every day. You know, what does that really mean?
Unbeknownst to me, the beginning of like the weeding out process that I think any neurodivergent parent needs to go through, you know, in terms of creating a safer bubble. And so then it was years later when we first got a diagnosis about Jacob. And then months later, before I start, you know, what really triggered it for me is I had a picture of me as a little kid about Jacob's age, about 4 years old. And it fell out of a box somewhere and I stuck it on the fridge and it sat there for a couple of months. And one day I noticed that in the picture, I'm scratching my arm like this. And Jacob does this exact same scratch to my arm, but it's exactly the same little movement. And I asked my mom and dad, I'm like, did I do that as a kid? And my dad didn't know. My mom's like, well, not that much. You know, she was getting defensive already. And so that started the rabbit hole of like, huh, we might look pretty similar. And then once we were getting a comfy blanket from Costco, and they have like 2 types of super soft blankets. And for some reason, one of them was really comfortable to me and the other one was really comfortable to him. And so we're having this fight over how do we cuddle on the couch with the blanket. Is kind of like our first access needs. And I'm getting frustrated with him for not accepting my blanket. And eventually it dawned on me that we were both just as, like we were the same, but it's very real. Like my soft blanket is prickly to him, his words, you know, and his soft blanket, I can say, yeah, it's soft, but it doesn't make me feel good.
It's stim clash.
Stim clash. So like, how does that play out for you? Because like, I imagine that
A lot.
your access needs may conflict from time to time with other members of your household.
Right. Well, and before I knew I was autistic, which was just a few years ago, I would just be struggling almost all the time. Like, because I'm actually a mix of sensory seeking and sensory avoidant, and it's really hard to parse out. Like when it comes to sounds of, you know, screaming kids or kids jumping on me, I can get overwhelmed. But when it comes to but you know, like this is the reason I'm wearing like 3 or 4 layers isn't just because I don't want to turn up the thermostat. This is like my self-soothing, always a hat, always a, you know, and so, you know, I'm this mix of seeking and avoidant, and it's been really, you know, knowing that has been so important. And
Little things like that just start adding up, and then you start to realize that like, oh, you're not just raising a neurodivergent kid, but you have a neurodivergent family. And then you know, and this is years, suddenly access needs start to come in. And you know, like, oh, I thought I had to just negotiate my own needs. Now I have to negotiate my own access needs too. And that one is largely sound. He's very loud and I'm not, and it's very triggering to me. And I've tried earplugs, but a lot of the ones you put in your ear, they make internal sounds louder. Like you can hear yourself chewing more, and that kind of bugs me. And
I actually, you know, I don't even have to do it that much anymore, but one of the most important things to me was just having these, and they're big, and not only is that nice because I like the pressure, it's nice because the kids can see them. So if they see me putting them on, they're like, oh, he's overwhelmed, you know?
Wow,
And I don't even
that's
have to say anything.
powerful.
Yeah, and it isn't, and they know I can still hear them with them on,
Yeah.
so like I'm not ignoring them.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it just really is, you know, it's kind of like certain animals that can puff up parts of them when they're distressed. It's just like, whoop.
That is amazing. And when you're modeling for them, you know, me as a human, I am meeting my own access needs. This is how I'm
Right.
going to regulate.
Right. And I'm still figuring out how to ask for my needs, but sometimes it's easier with kids because they really start out with a blank slate, you know?
How are you able to meet your own access needs as a parent?
We definitely have some conflicting access needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think in one area I could think of an example with sleep. I need my sleep. And I mean, it's sacred even for my kids. We have health issues that pop up if we're not sleeping. So that was a big one that we had to address. Talking about how can we find a way to meet our needs. So first we have to figure out what they are, but then how can we together figure out a way to meet all of our needs?
otherwise, a lot of access needs are just like it's like micro dosing with access needs, you know. So like in my ideal world, I would have like a man cave with a super big stereo system so I could feel music. Like headphones don't do it. Like I used to run a nightclub. Like
Oh, you did?
feel like
Wow.
your glass of water rattles off the table, you know, because it's so
Wow.
loud.
Wow.
So like if I get a chance to go to the grocery store by myself, I remind myself to listen to loud music in the car with a good stereo, you know.
I love that. Awesome.
So it's like, you know, stealing your access needs.
That to me, Elsa was aware of her access needs. She's like, "That's enough, Anna," and then Anna kept
Right,
like foot on the
exactly.
gas, like that's enough. And then it was like third strike. It's like meltdown.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that is, you know, that is actually a good segue to thinking about my parenting, because I have a 7-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and they have very different. 7-year-old is much more sensory seeking than the 3.5-year-old, and you know that kind of stuff does. Well, he can't shoot fire or ice or anything, but yeah, almost.
Not yet.
No, I think there was a study or something that came out, you know, the families that eat together around the dinner table without screens, without, you know, anything, have a conversation, you know, those are the families that make it, that stick together. And I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe,
where is that study?
I don't know, but maybe that's good for a lot of people, but that's
Right.
good for us. It was so stressed out.
It has definitely been just like such a continual process of unlearning, letting go, surrendering.
Yeah.
This is not at all what I thought it would look like, be like, and you know, and there was like quite a lot to go through to.
So I mean, I think it's, you know, it's like unlearning, like, you know, whatever you thought parenting was supposed to look like.
Yes. Yes, like we put when I moved in here, put little tags, name tags on every shelf and stuff, because you know, I think I'm autistic, but I've got the kind of I've got ADHD traits mixed in too, like most of us do. And like I never took off the labels. Now I don't really use them anymore, and maybe someday I'll take them off, but it helps the kids with reading too, to be able to see them. So they started labeling stuff. And now it says daddy on my door, you know, and like I think the Hulk 7-year-old got really excited that she could make the Hulk say Hulk on him.
That's amazing.
One of the biggest, most important things for me has been coming to see both my child's brain and my brain through a strengths-based lens, like, you know, like really focusing on the amazing strengths and benefits of having a neurodivergent brain, and utilizing those and building those and honoring those and celebrating those rather than focusing on what's wrong.
So do you talk about access needs, sensory needs, etc.? Like, do you talk about that explicitly with your kids?
I tried to. I'm still learning how to do that.
Yeah.
But yes, you know, I do. I talk about, you know, well, if they want the lights on, you know, maybe we'll turn them on, but usually they're fine with it, you know, and sound like, you know, I just try to find the right way to say, you know, if it's okay to be loud, because sometimes I'm loud too. I can't really regulate my voice volume, but it needs to be like more farther apart for me, because it's
Sure.
hurting me. Because
Yes.
it actually hurts, you know, if you're screaming. And I'm not talking like screaming in fear or pain or something. I'm just like kids just like to scream. You know?
Right, sure. Right. I mean, you're teaching them about conflicting access needs. I think if all humans understood conflicting access needs, we would have
Oh
a
my
lot
gosh,
less
yeah.
chaos in the world.
He is getting old enough where I can say stuff like, it's really hard on my brain when you yell. And so we're just getting to the point where we can do stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that has helped around being able to meet not just my access needs, but the needs of my whole family is having just very open, transparent dialogue about our needs and about our brains. And so because we have this sort of common language and understanding. You know, it's easy to say, I say this frequently, my brain is really overwhelmed right now. I need a break, or I can't do that right now. I need a little time, like that. You know, for a lot, it's like the transitions or whatnot are frazzling for me. And so having a demand right after the transition of need for engagement or whatever, like often I'm just like, you know, and so being able to just say, like, my brain needs a little time, like that was really overwhelming for my brain, has been so helpful. And then having that, so we all can say, you know, talk about what's happening in our brains, and then we all get it and understand. So it's like having that common understanding and language that has been so helpful in advocating, at least, for getting those needs met.
And I think that leads more to being interdependent too, because I've been thinking about interdependence versus independence, and interdependence feels better to me. But other than that too, I guess I've been challenged, I've been struggling with figuring out how far I can push the envelope of showing my neurodivergent traits openly, outside of our home. I think we've grown a lot in the past few years in our home, but how much can we take that outside of the home? My community hasn't always felt super safe.
I was going to ask you, like, you know, I mean, it's such a neuronormative question that I included in my email to you of like, of like, what do you wish you knew? Everything. I wish I knew everything about my brain.
Yeah. I wish I knew that my experiences were real all along. When I said something hurt, or, you know, and this is something a lot of people say, but when something didn't feel good, and, you know, as my own childhood, you know, my parents did a great job with what they had, which wasn't really a lot in terms of understanding neurodivergence, but the school system just ground me to bits, you know. And so, like, it wasn't supposed to be uncomfortable to me in the classroom, therefore it wasn't. And like that gets translated down to parenting too. I shouldn't be uncomfortable with this. I'm supposed to like kids doing this and that. I'm supposed to be okay with this. And always they come first, but you know, I can't actually be the parent I want to be if I'm in burnout or on the edge of meltdowns and shutdowns, and you know.
Amen.
So,
I think back when my first child was born, I didn't take off from work. I'm self-employed, and I thought, as someone who's self-employed, that if I took off, my work would suffer, I would lose business, people wouldn't understand, and it's horrible. And then when I finally did take off, it's like people understood. The world didn't end, you know. It wasn't noble to push through so hard. And
that makes me think about one of the things that I've been starting to talk about with my 6-year-old is around interdependence versus independence, and like normalizing interdependence.
yes.
Because like the narrative of like, you know, ooh, you know, you did the thing by yourself. Like, it's so overly glorified. Do you talk about that with your kids?
You know, I haven't. That's a really good point. You're right. It's also, they need to have some independence, but we don't want to like instill this colonial over emphasis on everyone doing everything on their own, which is like not healthy.
It's not healthy at all. And like, it's okay to, it's preferable to belong to community and rely on and be connected to people.
Right. And the people who are pushing the independence narrative often rely on others a lot more than they realize, you know. And so I am having to navigate social situations that I've avoided for decades, again, as my kid makes friends with people, like birthday parties. I hate birthday
I
parties.
hate birthday parties.
There's a video of me on my own 5th birthday hiding, like, you know, and then my parents said they had a big birthday party because they didn't know I wouldn't like it, and they never did it again. They felt bad. I was like, well, you didn't know, but like, that's what I want to do as an adult too. And you know, birthday parties are big. And then I'm like, yeah, it's one of those things that like, it brings me back to being in college or high school where I'm in a social group, but I'm drifting to the side because I don't know how to be a part of it.
But maybe this is an opportunity to reimagine again of like, maybe there's no right way to be at a birthday party.
Well, that's
Maybe
true.
You just named the thing of like, yeah, if this is a birthday party, some people play side by side, some people,
Yep.
you know, or like, you know, is there some, like, what would you, rather than think about it as like gravitating toward the sidelines, avoiding the main
Right.
activity, like, could you have an activity that you actually enjoy? It's just not being in the big crowd of the people.
Well, sometimes I try to find a job, like,
Oh,
in one
yes.
case, there was a fire in the old shelter fire thing. I just took care of that. Or
Yep, the people who were supposed to feel familiar never did.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's what, that contrast is what made me feel inadequate. I'm like, there's something wrong with me that I'm uncomfortable around you, even though like, really, it's because you're an unsafe bucket person. But I didn't have language to describe that. I was just like, oh, what's wrong with me? I can't get along with the people. I feel so uncomfortable. I don't know what to say.
You know, there's younger or older kids who are bored. I'll go hang out with them because there's only a couple of them. It's like, if I consciously think about it, it makes it easier. And then I don't get upset with myself for why did I do that? You know?
Right. Cause I'm like, I'm such a loser who like can't do the birthday party thing.
Yeah.
Cause it's like, that's the old narrative. That's like,
yeah,
the narrative
exactly.
of an unrecognized
Exactly.
neurodivergent person. That's like what we tell ourselves all the time. I could actually go to, you know, like a cocktail party. And if no one knew anyone, I was fine.
Yeah.
Everything else, not fine. So not fine.
Too clicky.
Too clicky, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I see that pattern playing out for Luna already as a kindergartner. When she sees that the other kids are familiar and she doesn't like, she doesn't feel like she is on the invert, right? And so, yeah.
So she, that idea, that whole scaffolding piece, the gap she can't navigate.
She can't navigate the gap, right?
Yeah.
But if there's like an adult who is facilitating, you know, being like a central figure who's facilitating a game where everyone has a role and the expectations are clear, and it's like there's some structure to it, like that's fine. She'll play those games.
Yeah. And then like my kid wants to go to this whatever birthday party, and then I end up doing what I always do anyway because I'm autistic, which is go like sit by a fire or sit outside or something like alone. And then it's like, well, then it seems like I'm not part of the, you know, or then I don't want that to rub off towards my kid. It's like, well, he doesn't seem to want to interact. Maybe his kid doesn't. You know what I mean?
It's all the brain rules. It's like all the things that people like make up that like aren't real, but are common. Like they're not real, but they are commonly like held myths. Well, and it's like going back to like you're in this life where you're like showing up as your authentic self in the world, but like in these other instances, you're having to put your mask back on.
So, well, and this is your experience as a parent. How does your lived experience when you see your child faced with that gap that they can't navigate? What wisdom do you bring to those moments for yourself or for them?
In the thick of it, I don't have this. It's like 2 minutes, maybe it's like 60 seconds later before I can zoom out, and then it's 60 seconds too late. It's the matching of my experience as a child that makes me want to fix it and change it.
You know, and certainly I don't mean sweeping the challenges under the rug at all, because I think there's also been a lot of real power in sharing with my child around our different challenges and our shared challenges. And I think that that's been so important. But I can see with my child, like how much the more that we just like do up the strengths and honor those strengths and make space for the strengths, the better that they do. And so I'm working on applying that to myself too.
Especially for us that came from generations where you really weren't allowed to be yourself no matter who you were, like nobody was. And so, you know, I don't know how else we would discover ourselves after like wearing a mask for that long. But having a neurodivergent kid certainly makes it possible, because you can see who you maybe once were. And then you're like, oh, I could do that. I could be that again.